Hi, and welcome to this podcast for the University of Alabama at Birmingham Research Center of Excellence in Arsenicals. My name is Elena Kidd, and I'm a program manager in the UAB School of Public Health. Today, we are joined by Dr. Janice Chambers, Giles Distinguished Professor at Mississippi State University College of Veterinary Medicine. Dr. Chambers is also the director of the MSU Center for Environmental Health Sciences, a diplomat with the American Board of Toxicology, and a fellow with the Academy of Toxicological Sciences. Dr. Chambers is in Birmingham today for a seminar as part of the UAB Research Center of Excellence in Arsenicals, and we wanted to invite her to the studio to speak briefly about some of her work around developing antidotes for organophosphate poisoning. So thank you so much for being here today and taking the time out of your schedule to talk with me before you return to Mississippi.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's been a fine visit.
Well, to get us started, what are organophosphates and what are they used in or what are they used for?
The organophosphates is a line of chemistry that was developed as insecticides during the 1940s, and they are widely used worldwide as insecticides. But their chemistry also allows them to be chemical warfare agents, and they have been used as nerve agents.
And so organophosphates are used insecticides, but they can be used in warfare agents like you mentioned. What are some of the historical uses of organophosphates during war times?
They really haven't been used in too many situations. They were used as warfare agents in the Iran-Iraq war, and they have been used in the Syrian war. More recently, we're more concerned about them being used as terrorist agents.
And assassinations or assassination attempts?
Too, right.
What are some of the health impacts from organophosphate poisoning? Do health impacts differ depending on the route of exposure?
Same mechanism of action occurs regardless of the route of exposure. But the health impacts could be death because these are very toxic compounds if there's a lethal level exposure. Long-term exposures could lead to potentially developmental defects or other kinds of physiological effects. There is concern that with the high-dose organophosphate poisonings that you would see with nerve agents in terrorist attacks or something like that, that you would potentially get seizures, and the seizures would be recurrent, and they would cause brain damage, and there would be permanent damage to the brain because of the seizures.
Can you share a little bit about the work you're doing around developing antidotes for these types of poisoning?
Sure. The current antidotes right now are atropine, which blocks some of the action that the organophosphates cause, and oximes. And oximes are able to restore the activity to the target enzyme, which is called acetylcholinesterase. The current antidote that's an oxime is called 2-PAM, and it's approved by the FDA for use in the United States, but it does not penetrate the blood-brain barrier, so it cannot restore activity to that enzyme in the brain, only in the peripheral nervous system. So when we have these persistent seizures and recurrent seizures, those cannot really be alleviated by 2-PAM. So we have developed a platform of chemistries, oxime chemistries, that do show some efficacy in crossing the blood-brain barrier. And in our laboratory animal studies with surrogates of nerve agents or with insecticidal organophosphate chemistries, that we are seeing protection of the structure and some of the behavioral effects of organophosphates in lab animals.
That's great. And how quickly do those antidotes have to be given to be effective?
The sooner the better, because they can act very, very quickly, and a high dose is going to get the animal or potentially the person into seizures and very strong effects, brain damage before too long. So if there's much of a gap between the exposure and the start of the seizures and other sorts of signs of poisoning and the delivery of the antidote, it probably will not be very effective.
And before we go, is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners that I haven't covered?
About the only thing I would say is that there are these isolated instances of assassinations and terrorist attacks that we've heard about over the last couple of years. Certainly there were some terrible terrorist attacks with sarin a number of years ago in Japan, and then not too long ago we had an assassination of Kuala Lumpur airport from a nerve agent, and also not too long ago there was an assassination attempt in Great Britain against a double spy. And so these chemicals are really not that hard to synthesize if you have an ability to synthesize these chemicals. And so there is a concern that the terrorists could get them and use them for their purposes.
Mass production or mass dispersal of the chemicals?
That could happen because, again, the chemistry is not that complicated. That's right.
It's definitely scary. I'm glad that you're doing the work that you're doing because it sounds like it's definitely needed.
Well, we're really hopeful that our antidotes are going to continue to show good positive results. They are so far with all of our laboratory animal studies. And, of course, we would not be able to test them in people for efficacy. The animal rule prevents that, certainly, because we cannot expose people to poisons. But we are seeing some very good efficacy in animal species, and hopefully that would apply to humans.
What's the timeline from the research that you're doing to getting it approved as kind of an antidote for these types of poisons?
For approval, it would still be several years. We haven't done an extensive enough set of toxicity studies on the compounds themselves, and we haven't done all of the efficacy studies. We haven't done some of the optimization types of studies that would show what kind of dosing and what kind of rates of repeat dosing or anything like that might be useful.
But still, the progress is being made, and hopefully in a few years, enough research will be informed enough to get this out.
We certainly hope so.
Well, thank you so much for being here. It was great learning more about organophosphates, their uses, and the great work that you're doing at Mississippi State University in developing these antidotes to counter the health effects. And thank you so much for listening. Please tune in next time for another episode from the UAB Research Center of Excellence in Arsenicals.